So I'm here with my good friend, Carrot Top,
dude.
Scott, right? And we were just talking about how your goddaughter was watching Thundermans.
Yeah, Thundermans, yeah.
Which is something I did 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we're just saying it's amazing. You never know who's going to be watching the stuff that you do.
Yeah.
You also have such a long career in show business. You must get stuff all the time of people going, I saw you on Family Guy.
Chairman of the board. I'm like, what? And like, it was on HBO last night. I'm like, chairman of the board was on HBO? Hangover. There's always these things that just pop up. And you can tell they rerun them because my phone will blow up. Hey, how you on the Hangover? So they must be rerunning it somewhere.
But that's because you have, once again, this is...
Well, when you do something, you always want to do a good job. Because
someone's
going to see it again.
They replay this shit nowadays all over the place. But this is 40 years of you being
Isn't that crazy now?
I'm
the
business.
old guy.
I mean, right.
Like in my show, I talk about meeting Carlin and meeting and all these people. And then I'm sitting there thinking, well, now I'm the old guy that they want advice from.
Well, you become
tips.
like a Vegas standard now. You're like Wayne Newton of a modern era almost.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that feel for you after?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Well, it's just crazy because it goes so fast. You know, I remember the day I had never played Vegas. I was doing Regis and Kathy Lee. I got done. I did so great on the show, and this old guy walks over and worked somewhere in the show, and said, "You must just kill in Vegas, man." And I said, "Never played." He said, "You ever played Vegas?" And I said, "No." He said, "That's incredible. You are Vegas." And I said, "If I booked you, would you consider it?" And I said, "Of course. I'm a whore. Of course, I'll do anything." So they called up Bally's, whatever. My manager said, "Some guy said he tried to book you at Bally's. Do you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So we went to Vegas for the first time, 1995, and I did. I mean, it was hard because they have a big showroom, and I'm not used to that. I'm used to drunk college kids, bars and comedy clubs, and this was a total different thing, completely different thing. It was Vegas, and I was so green. I was so, I didn't know what I was doing up there, and it was horrible. But I fought through it, and then they said, "You want to do a couple more weeks down the road, like split it up." It's called down like not a permanent residency, but it's like a couple weeks, then 4 months away, come back 2 weeks, 4 months, kind of like a lot of people do now. And we did that again, reluctantly did it again. I'm like, this is just, but it was at the MGM now, a little better room. And I was getting a little bit, it was, okay, remember 2 weeks in Vegas coming up, like we just dreaded it. And then it was just weird one day, when I got to the Luxor, I just kind of figured it out. It was just literally in a night. I was going, finally I said, I know how to do this Vegas thing. And I just learned it. And
was there a different way to do your show in Vegas? Is that what
everything
you're saying?
From the speed of the show to the content, how I did, the pacing, what I talked about, the mood of how I talk. I mean, everyone in the audience in Vegas is from, usually, there's a lot of locals too, but we also get people from all over the world. I mean, I can go out in the audience and I'm talking, and they're like, they're from Japan and they're at my show. Like, are they getting any of this? So you draw a lot of people, and you just don't know. And the typical night in Las Vegas, what the audience would be, when you go to Omaha, Nebraska, it's going to be pretty much what you know. You go into Alabama, there's going to be a bunch of rednecks, and they know you, and you do your redneck jokes, and you kill. But Vegas was a little smorgasbord, of everyone, every race,
people from all over
the world. I know just their whole livelihood, everything was just different. Talking about people from California, from people from Maine, all in the same room. Very eclectic audience, and young and age groups, because my demo has always been all over the map, because I've always, like you, I did TV shows, I did the Cartoon Network, then I did The Hangover, then I did then I did AT&T commercials. So it was like it wasn't one particular age group that was. It was I would do the roast with the thing. I would do Jerry Lewis Telethon, with a 90-year-old audience. The very next night, I'm in a club with a bunch of kids. So it was always all age groups, and that's kind of that's why I think I'm still going for I am, and people still remember, oh, Carrot Top, I grew up with you, because there's not one particular. I didn't have one particularly. We talked about this thing, like a certain sitcom that just put you in this one thing.
So when you were talking also about Vegas and having such an eclectic group of people, so then how do you run your show to appeal to everyone?
Well, you just kind of we have a formula. We have like a general outline, and we just kind of dance in and out of it, which is great. We have the structure, and then we have the beginning, the middle, and the end, and we have bullet points in there that I can jump in and try something new, like I did last night with the WrestleMania people here. So I threw in the WrestleMania. There's a nice little section I call it, where I jump in and to do some new stuff, so I don't mess up everyone, because it's a big flow, and it's an hour and a half show, and it's almost too rehearsed and programmed in a sense. Now, the number one thing I like of what people always say is they go, "Wow, it always comes across so just
Go with the flow." Yeah, so
it's
improv.
right. It's so natural. If it comes to you so natural, how do you? I said, well, it is to a degree, and then I know I'm going in to talk about flying, but then I have a little love in the middle. I can, say AC/DC's coming Saturday. So I said, hey, I put up an AC/DC joke. We made it last night. It was so good. You missed about one night. It's a guitar for Angus, because he's getting old. He does, that move he does
Chuck
with his
Berry
leg,
with the leg.
with the Chuck Berry leg.
Yeah.
I see soon he's not gonna be able to do that. So I made a guitar that has a leg that does it for him. And
But let me just jump in here, because
jump.
you said I missed it by one night, but here's something that was very interesting to me, and I've seen you do this before. I've seen your show many times. I could be paraphrasing it, but you came up with the idea the night I was there and told your prop guy, we need this for tomorrow. And you were working on the prop after the show. So it's almost like you had this idea while you were on stage. Yeah. Do you do that quite a bit?
We were working on that.
Yes,
night.
I saw the wooden kind of template for it that night.
We were working on that night, so we finished it. Yeah, I mean the blessing and the curse with having my brain is it never shuts off. So it's but I call him Jeff, or what, 3 in the morning. I'm like, we got to get a guitar and a leg and a thing, and a rubber chicken and a tennis racket by noon.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that's when I think of the stuff. It just comes. It comes when it comes. I'm one of those guys too, because everyone in art in general, whether it be an artist, a musician, an actor, a comedian, they always say, do you ever have writer's block? And I say, I knock on wood, never do, because I don't ever try to. I never try to write, and I never try to not write. So it comes. Now, I might go for, God, I haven't written a joke in a couple of days. Uh-oh. And then something will come. But I don't ever sit there and stress about, like, sit down with a pen and say, okay, I'm going to write for 2 hours. That's not how my brain works. It'll hit me. I was laying this home night, and my fan was on, and I just got in front of the fan, and the fan was blowing me. And I said, I thought the draft started tomorrow. It's just dumb, but it took 2 seconds, and
it works.
It's fun for one day.
Yeah.
And it was stupid and clever, but I thought the draft started tomorrow. Ooh, and my hair's flying. I just thought when I was parking, as I was waiting at the light to turn, I just thought I should do another one for the draft, and it just the draft, they always say, in the 37th pick of the 2025 NFL draft, the so and so select. So I just called my buddy Caliendo, and I just said, could you do this for me? And he said, I don't know how to do the voice. Of all things, the only voice he doesn't know how to do is the commissioner. So I'm just going to do it myself. I was going to say, in the 37th pick of the 2025 NFL draft, the Luxor Casino selects Carrot Top, prop comic from Florida, and kind of superimpose. That's Jeff's job tonight now. He's great. And then superimpose it over, whether it matches or not.
Right. Yeah.
This is a weird part. Did you see the draft? I picked, and I make it something like a 97th pick, something horrible.
See, this is another thing that I noticed, I think we discussed this the other night, is that you remind me a lot of Robin Williams as a comic. He threw so much against the wall, and 90% sticks. But if there's a couple bombs in there, it doesn't matter. You just keep going, and you have no problems trying anything, which is what makes your show work. Because there's a couple in there that are kind of stinkers, but that's almost half the fun.
Well, right, it's a numbers game for sure.
Right.
And secondly, with that, there are built-in stinkers that
Yes.
And it's kind of, and people always say, God, my favorite part is when and the joke doesn't do well. I said, well, I hope it's just one or two. The whole show can't be not funny. And then the Carson thing, look over.
Yeah. So
it's only funny if it's a, because that was my favorite thing as a kid when Carson would bomb on a joke, he would do it. Getting out of it, he would do, well, it turns out that, well, that was good. I'm glad I did that one, That's the one really is going to get. And that
I was thinking the exact same thing. You kind of hit the collar and be like, that one didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. So I do that throughout the show, but there are ones that are specifically in there that I know will get, so I can do that joke in a sense,
Something else I noticed when I was in your dressing room, you kind of talked about this, about how it seems like your show is so freeform, but you had everything. You had a big, I don't know if I was allowed to see this, but you had a big pink piece of paper, like construction paper, and had all your show written out. And there's 100 bits, if not more.
Yeah.
Every single. Do you know this off by heart, or
you know, I memorized it all now.
Wow.
I don't have a teleprompter. And
right. But just memorizing the entire show, that does a lot to remember.
It's a lot, and it's more of you get into a rhythm. That's why when we add all the new stuff, I'm a new guy. I mean, my crew can tell you, there's not a day goes by I don't come in and I have a new joke to add. So it becomes a little tricky at times. But people always ask me that. In fact, you made me think of something right now. Says, do you have a teleprompter? I don't have a teleprompter. I should have one of my crew guys come out and say, the next joke is about, and that'd be funny. See, I don't have I don't, by the way, people ask for notes or a teleprompter. I don't have that.
You don't.
He comes out and yells with a bullhorn, whatever the bit is, flying bit. And I go, thank you. He needs a teleprompter. That'd be funny. Physical.
No, but see, and that's what I'm saying, because it seems to me, it almost is like a late night talk show where whatever's going on, you have to incorporate it instantly into your act. Like the draft, for example, or Angus, for whatever it may be.
Well, at least for me, I think that it's important. When I go to see a show, I want to see. I mean, different with music probably, because they're playing, but people want to come hear their songs in the set. They don't want to hear the topics of the day.
Well, it's almost like you're a rock and roll band. You've got your greatest hits that you play, because I've seen a few of them, which they're always great, and then you throw in your new songs too.
Indeed.
The way to run
and sometimes
the
the new stuff becomes the old classic rock and roll.
Yeah.
I think this guitar is going to probably be a classic now, so it'll be like, oh, dude, that,
Because there's people that come, and we mentioned the late, great Vinnie Paul came to your show, I don't know, 300 times or something.
Unbelievable.
There's people that come constantly, so you always want to keep
every night I go, because I've been doing it so long, I go out into the audience and do my little highs, and almost every night. Last night there was 6 or 7 people that they all yell out how many shows they're our 9th, and I'm like, ninth show, my God. And last night, this is our 30th show, and I said, gee, I've only seen this show 31 times. But it's great because you get so many comeback people that come back, return visitors. So it's another reason to write too, because you want people to. They want to see the new stuff.
Yeah,
I mean they do, and they want to see the old stuff.
Something else that I noticed is your show has changed a little bit over the years, in a good way. I mean, I think from what I recall before, it was a lot more of the props. Here's a joke, throw it. You told some more like long-term stories incorporated into your act as well, which made it so much more fun too.
It's something that a lot of people are noticing. Friends of mine like you, comics that have come, and I just had a comic, Jeff Dye, come, and he was blown away. He said, "I'd never in my wildest. You have to get every comic to see this." And I said, I don't give a shit. But he says, you got to, because you're not even a prop guy anymore. You're like a stand-up. So I think people would be shocked. And it took a long time to get to that comfort and to that kind of state of doing the show, because it was, one, I was just so nervous. I was young, and I was just, that was my thing. And the TV people kind of screwed me in that too, because when I do a TV performance, that's what they wanted. They didn't want me to tell a story. They didn't want anything. They just wanted props, get out.
You mean like if you did like a Carson show, for example, or something? Or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay.
And one time I said, I have this whole story about, and they said, no, just props. So I have the luxury of having my own show, so I can do what I want. But I still kind of stuck to their method. And then we had, I just got older, more comfortable on stage. And then we had COVID, and COVID came around. And they moved us into this enormous room with everyone separated, and I'm holding up props that no one can see.
Oh,
I mean, literally, and I mean, it just was like awkward. So I said, I'm just going to maybe tell more stories because they can hear the story. And so that's what I did. I just started evolving during COVID about just talking more. Interesting, right?
Right.
And then when I got back to the after we got back into the normal groove, it still seemed to work. They liked the stories. And then I broke my leg snowboarding. So I was on my knee scooter for 4 months, and I couldn't do the props. I couldn't I could do them, but I had to wheel over, pick it up, turn around, show it. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to do more stand. So between COVID and me breaking my leg, I think it just changed the whole the whole thing.
It's like a happy accident almost.
Yeah, and I mean, some of the best shows my crew would say were on my knee scooter. They were just awesome. I even went on the road. We were in big arenas, and I was doing the whole show on my scooter. I was nervous because I wanted to be, I want the big rock and roll show, and it turned out to be okay. Everyone was like, "You're funny on a scooter."
So you still do road shows as well?
Yeah, we do. We not a lot of them, but we do whenever we get together. A string of them, we do them, but not like the old days when we had.
Your schedule's so busy here in Vegas alone.
Yeah, this residency takes up most of the time to go and do road shows. But, the road shows are so fun because that's a different breed. The energy of the people, the crowds. I mean, they're wearing Carrot Top shirts, and they've gotten babysitters for the week. You know what I mean? It's just a special night out, as it is. And sometimes in Vegas, Carlin would say, how many people here came just because the buffet was full, So sometimes sometimes you think that when you're there, like they couldn't get into Blue Man Group, so they're going to come see me.
Right. When
are you going to sing? I don't sing.
Was Carlin one of your big influences?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got to really get to know him towards the end, which made it great because he would give me advice and tell me, just things and just talk and, just watching him and studying him and then getting to know him. Was remarkable, and I asked him a lot of the same questions too about writing and this and that, and he really didn't like talking about the art, the craft. He really wanted to talk about me and my family and where'd your dad do, and where'd you go to school. He was more interested in how I became into this world of comedy, as opposed to how do you write your process. Like but he loved my process. He said, like, how do you come up with that? And I'm like, it's just the way you came up with the stuff bit. He goes, yeah, but no, it's different. I said, well, no, it is different. Like I came up with the paper cups and string telephone. I said, and then I had a third one for call waiting.
Yeah,
it was brilliant.
Classic.
Yeah, and that's the one he said that he even said, how do you do that? That's brilliant. And I said, well, thank you. And then he said, but no, seriously, that takes a twisted brain to come up with that. And I said, well, I'm a twisted guy.
That joke kind of, you can't do that one anymore, though, because call waiting is a thing of
It's
the
going to
past.
go, but you could do it as a classic.
Yeah,
you throw it out and say, here's some of the stuff that's still timeless that probably still plays,
Yeah. I remember I had a show here once. We did Monday Night Raw, I think Thomas and Mack, and Carlin was playing. And I remember I left the ring, went right into the taxi, changed on the way, got there and sat down. I sat down with like this nice old couple. They're probably expecting, hippy dippy weatherman or something. And Carlin comes like, you know what? You haven't heard in a while. And I was sitting next to this old lady, and I was so embarrassed. It was like sitting next to my mom or something. And he, how he was, just full on dirty.
Sure.
And I was I'm so sorry. I have nothing to do with this, ma'am. But that was Carlin. He just
I used to ask him, do you have like a contract that the more people that you walk in the first minute, you get paid extra for that?
No, is that a comedy term for people walking out?
Yeah, well, just walking. Yeah.
Yeah.
You say he can walk some. That guy's a walker. He can walk people. The comics are known for walking people. They just get up and this is enough. And you always hope and pray that never. I don't ever want to be a walker. I love people that's hopefully they know what they're getting involved and engaged in when they sign up for it. But I think they do. The show's it's been around for a while. And I think the word of mouth. But there are some people probably that come and might be like, I thought, it's a little more raunchy than I thought. But I've always tried to keep it not, especially the word raunchy. You saw the show. It's adult. Anything. It's loud. It's adult. It's rock and roll. But it's definitely not raunchy.
You take your teenagers there and have a good time. Yeah, it's not like filthy or anything like that.
Yeah.
When you just talking a little bit more about the Vegas residency, and it's like so cool because the Luxor is basically built around Carrot Top. There's like Carrot Top room keys and Carrot Top
I'll be buried
poker
under the
chips
Luxor.
and all that sort of thing. How is that for you? I mean, obviously to you, it's just another day's work, but it's still like you're one of the Vegas cornerstones at this point in time.
Yeah, no, it's you don't, it's weird. Like you're in the business, you don't really think about it a lot because you're just doing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't really take the time to. When I lived in LA, I lived right in the Palisades, right on the water, and I would get up and do everything I could to rush out to go to work, go to a read or go to lunch, anything, just to get out of there and go into Hollywood. And I would never look at the ocean.
Yeah.
Never.
Right.
I had a friend visit. He was like, that's unbelievable. You must sit here every morning and just stare at this. And I said, I never look. I don't even open my windows. I just get, and I realized, I never really took it in. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes am very good at this. I saw it happen with Brian May at the Queen.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one with where they did the tribute for him.
For Freddie?
For Freddie.
Yeah.
And he came off, and it was a sea of people. It was either the one for Freddie, or it was Live Aid.
Okay, yeah.
I want to say it's Live Aid now. It was so, just, you can't imagine, just a sea of people,
Yeah.
right? Now, they hadn't seen that type of crowd and going that nuts. And you see Brian walk off with his guitar, and I forget who the artist was that grabs him, and you can see it and hear him say it. And he says, "Hey, Brian, turn around." And the guy's like, "What? I'm going to my room." No, stop, turn around. Look behind you. And he stops, and he looks. He says, "Take that in for a second. You will never, ever
Right.
see that again." And it gives me chills right now, but that I'm kind of guilty of that too every night. So I kind of have moments like that where right before I go up or even during the show, I always say to myself, "Man, enjoy this moment." I'm
Sure.
right in the middle of my, say prime. I think it's my prime. I'm 60, but it's I'm definitely past my. I'm 60. I've been doing this for 40 years. So, how many times did you stop during your career and say, "Holy shit, I'm a comedian and I made it, and I wanted to do this, and I was 12." So,
I've even seen
I try to have those moments where I take it in
Drink
at the
it
end
in,
at the very end when everyone's clapping. I kind of look out there and say, "This is a cool job,"
Once again, we've known each other for a long time. Always love coming to see him. I'm so proud of this guy because it's 6, maybe more, 6 shows a week, whatever.
Yeah, 6.
Full theater every time I've been. I mean, that's a lot of shows to be doing to always have people there.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I mean, the word obviously it gets around, and it is Vegas, but that's a lot of traffic coming through, man.
Yeah, and it's fun to do. I mean, people I probably ask you the same questions I get. How do you get up for it? Like, are you, if you don't feel good that day or you're whatever? I always say the same thing. Unless I'm sick, that's tough. If you're sick or you're hurt, or you can't speak. I mean, your voice is gone. That happens to performers, at least out here in Vegas, more than people know, where you just don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And I'll call my guy and say, "I can't do the show," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "I have no voice. I mean, that's my instrument, so we can't do the show." But I can do it sick. I can do it hurt. In fact, I'm hurt right now. My back's always hurting. I just get up there and go. Adrenaline takes over. But it's not really hard to get you on the way down. We drive down, and as we're driving, we're already going over some new things. I mean, literally every day, something we're going to do when we get there. And we walk in, and we go up to sound check. There's the music. There's lights going. There's fog, and you're just like, I'm at my job. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm in rock and roll.
That's right.
It's time to go.
I've been wrestling 34 years, and you've got 40. We came in kind of one foot in the old school, one foot in the new school. I want to ask you what some of the experiences you had with some of the giants in comedy. You mentioned Carson. How many times did you do his show, and what kind of memories do you have from being with Johnny?
I was the only guy that did the day after he left.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't the day of the week. He left on a Friday, said goodbye, and I was on Wednesday with Leno.
Oh, so you never did Carson?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Carson wouldn't have me.
Really? Why?
He's one of those guys, just didn't want any props.
He thought you were too much of a gimmick?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And then when he left, the people that booked me said, "You know what? Johnny would love you."
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate because he was just, he just was set in his ways. And the guy that booked it, he would come up to me all the time and say, "Johnny would absolutely lose his mind with your act." Because it wasn't what, I know it wasn't the puns and the things and the, "Hey, look, it's a water buffalo." It wasn't like, it was like the cups and strings. So Johnny would have been like, "That's clever."
Right.
He would have seen through that. But, hearsay, can't go back and look now at that, but never did. But I've done thousands of Lenos and Regis and Kathy Lee's, and every talk show that's ever existed, I've been on it. But
what about the Jerry Lewis Telethon?
Oh, I did that
Let's
30
talk about Jerry
times.
Lewis and talk about that, because this was the kids might not know that. Listen, this was a 24-hour telethon.
Yeah.
And it was every September, and Jerry Lewis was the host, and he would start at the end of that time. The tuxedo bow tie would be around his neck, and his 24 hours of being awake or whatever the whole night.
It was unbelievable because that's the kind of thing I grew up, not watching. I was a kid watching the Jerry Lewis Telethon and watching comedians go up and do their stuff. That's one of the reasons one of the outlets that I admired that I wanted to do comedy, because watching that. So that's a surreal moment. You're actually on the telethon with Jerry Lewis as you watch as a kid, right? Yeah. Everyone's like that with a kid with an NFL play right now. I can't believe I'm hiking the ball to Tom Brady.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there and I'm backstage and there's Jerry Lewis who comes over and it's just so surreal. I'm like, I grew up watching, Ed McMahon. Ed McMahon was my dear friend. And all the comics. I mean, you just sit there and there's, and I go up and it was just old school, because that was an old school program, an old school everything from producing and how they do it to going to the MTV half hours where they was just, that was my people, my young people, like you said, and then old school was that. Now, the one time that Jerry got me pretty good, although there's a story behind it. So I'm ready to go on, and he's standing right next to me, and Ed's standing next to me. He says, "All right, I'm gonna bring you when he gets done. I'm gonna bring you up on the whatever." And he said, "What are you ending on?" And Jerry's like, "I don't know. This just came in, so just keep an eye. I might go to break." So Jerry goes out, and he reads this thing. A kid just died. I mean, just died, and they have the picture of him up.
Yeah.
And the whole crowd is losing everything. I mean, they're just
crying.
Everyone's crying. Jerry's crying. The camera guys are crying. The band's crying. I look back at Ed and I, and we're not crying, but we're like, I don't honestly know what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. I would guess he's going to go to break. And I said, okay. Like, you sure about that? And he says, but Jerry, knowing him, he has trust in you. He's probably going to bring you up. And I'm like, he wouldn't do that. And sure as shit, he got done. And he said, well, he will be missed. And if there was only one guy here that could get us through this, he's standing back there, one of my best pals, a friend of the show, bring out Carrot Top. And I was like, and everyone is, wiping their things. And first joke out, nothing. Second joke out, still not. But I mean, the crowd felt for me. And then I said, I looked over and said something off remark like, great intro or something, thanks for perfect timing, great timing for comedy or something like that. And the whole crowd just laughed, and then I had him. Yeah. And I came off, and Ed hugged me, and he says, see, you're a pro, man. You put it. And I said, I was scared to death because the first two jokes, nothing.
Right.
I mean, I'm bombing. And because the crowd was still trying to dry their eyes.
Yeah. I've used this when I had, one of the times Paul Stanley was on, talking about KISS now being this institution, and everyone loves KISS and the makeup and all that stuff. But when they first started, like how much you guys have to go on stage with this makeup where people are probably laughing at these idiots?
Good question.
Kind of similar with you. Carrot Top is a guy, we know with the props. How hard was it for you at first when you're this guy, red hair, all over the place, Carrot Top with your props? Was that something that was easy to get into the scene, or was it a little bit like Carson was thinking, it's a gimmick, this guy's a gimmick?
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, my opening joke was a red wig. So I put a red wig over my red hair. And
that's good.
It was great. And they say, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carrot Top. And I came up and I had this big red wig on. And I said, hey, how you guys doing? And everybody's like, okay, it's a total gimmick. And then I pulled it off, and I had all this big red hair. And then that was the opening line. I said, I said, oh, funny, right? It was not that funny. And then they're like, oh, this guy's really is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but it still was, I don't know if just the name alone was, but the act itself was, with all the props and stuff, was always a crowd pleaser. I mean, that's where the other comics would get mad, because I would destroy. I'd go in. I would do the material that I relate to, like you said the other night. What your crowds want.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I know what my audience wants. They want loud music. They want strobe lights. They want, and so I would tailor it to that. And that's why when I kept progressing into different demos and different, from theaters from comedy clubs to theaters, from colleges, it had to evolve. It had to change. I couldn't go to the clubs and do what I was doing in the colleges because everyone adult like the theaters, and now you really got to be grown up and you got to just. I kind of do a thing. I never done it in years here, but like we have a college right here, right across the street from me, right? UNLV. Now I always say, who could probably in their mind talk their parents into letting them go to college in Vegas, like right?
Yeah, right.
Just imagine that you're sitting there in Kentucky, you have a dinner table, and you're like, so you're thinking about going to college, and like, yeah, Mom, I think I'm going to go to college, and the dad's like, that's great, son. Where are you thinking about going? You going to go like, Ohio State or da-da-da? Well, actually, there's this really good school in Las Vegas. And just the dead silence at the table, like, you're not going to Vegas to college. Like, it's such a weird thing. A college in Las Vegas.
Right. When you're talking also, too, I love how you open your show with, like, a lot of times Carrot Top is a punchline for certain whatever it may be. And you own it, but it really is kind of one of those things where sometimes it's like Carrot Top is the punchline.
Sure.
And I don't understand the reason really why, because you're one of the most successful comics of our generation, but still, maybe is it the name or what is your thought?
Well, some guy one time explained it why. I think he said it was, he said it wasn't a rip on me being, because I am funny. He said it was when you say the name Carrot Top, it's funny saying it and you also get an image. So the guy said, don't take it. It was, I think it was The Simpsons.
Yeah.
He said, I don't consider it, because they asked him, why do you always use Carrot Top as a reference point? He said, because it's funny. It's funny, and everyone knows him.
Yeah.
So it's a name that if you did a thing and you said Bill Burr, they're going to say,
who?
Right. Well, they might know who Bill Burr is, but
right.
But you just say Carrot Top and who's because it's just funny and there's a name and they all know me kind of thing. And they picture me and they put my stupid face up and they okay. But I've always, I mean, it's been going on for my whole career now, so it's just become part of your career, my brand, and my, which I find to be fine. I think 3 times this week someone says, they talked about you on this, they referenced you on that. As long as it's not negative, it's something horrible,
right?
You know what I mean? Someone says it's about as funny as Carrot Top at a so-and-so, then that would be hurtful, but it's never used in that fashion.
Has there been a couple that stood out for you that were, I mean?
Oh, yeah. A lot of people have. Margaret Cho back in the day Dennis Miller was going on about me, and she said, why do you hate Carrot Top so much? And he said, because he opened for me and he went long, and that's the number one rule. And she said, I heard it, so I saw him. And I said, I didn't go long. And he said, yeah, we were at Northwestern University. I said, no, we were at Wake Forest. And he says, okay, whatever. I said, well, no, I know every detail. We were at Wake Forest. They called me at 2 p.m. I got there at 5 in the afternoon. I brought the greatest hits that I had. They wanted me to do 15 minutes. And I said, I don't have 15 minutes. They said, bring as many as you can to get close to that, even 10. So I loaded up my trunk. And I moved to Beverly. No, the load trunk, and I went down to.
And this is just starting. You're just a kid.
Oh, I'm brand new, green, man. And I drove in my trunk, and I'm going to open for Dennis Miller. Are you kidding me?
Huge.
So and it's biggest I've ever played, a big arena like that.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, and I first go to the sound check. You kind of get there, but you don't get. Like you probably, once you play anything, it's just a room. So if people say, what's it like to play a stadium? Well, a stadium's got a lot more people, but you play it like it's a comedy club.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you do. So I said, holy shit, there's like 4,000 people, double-decker theater. I'm not going to play it like this. There's the comedy club, even though it's a big stage. I went out and I did 4 jokes maybe, and I'm killing. And I'm just in the groove. And I'm like, you guys are great. Oh my God, thanks. And I had done this one prop, and I remember what it was. It was a car that was in the shape of a ramp. Mm-hmm. So if you hit a car head on, you just jump it. And so it was like that kind of stuff. All my stuff was always kind of clever, right?
Right.
So I look over in the wings, and Dennis Miller's like doing the rap sign, like I got get him off. But I'd only done like 2 minutes, not even, right? So I look over and the guy's like, wrap it up. So I just did my cups and string joke. That was my big ending closer. So I said, grabbed a kid in the front row. Said, remember this? Hey, what's going on? I can't hear you. Hold on, I have another call. Call away. And it just destroyed. And he comes walking out with all my shit still there. So he just said, leave your shit. And I walked off, but I wanted to clean up for him. And he just stood there and did his thing. And at one point, I went up into the rafters and watched, and everyone was going like, fucking great. And I went up to the thing, and he had picked up, just in the middle of a set somewhere, he just picked up the car, and he went, I hope this one was funny, because I don't know what, I hope that says comedy, I guess, somewhere. I don't see it. And the crowd was dead silent. And he didn't throw it, but he just tossed it down, not putting it down. He just went, funny. And everybody just booed. Like,
wow.
They loved me. They were like, and he went, what the? And I remember that point, I remember saying, the topper. He called me the topper. I love the topper. So he got all done, and he went to leave, and I went to meet him on the side to say, hey. And not only did he not say hi, he left in a huff, and I guess, whatever. I was going to say, I didn't have a problem with you, and explain the joke. It's a car, see? When So years and years and years and years go by, and he's just on every show ripping me, a new one, every show. And so finally I meet him at the and literally elevator doors open, just like in my show, that bit, the bing, and the doors open, and there he is. I said, Dennis. And he goes, Topper. I said, we got to talk about this. He says, what? I said, what in the hell do you have against me? He says, I said, I said, no, it was Wake Forest University. I was supposed to do 15 minutes. I did 2. I didn't even have 15 minutes. I couldn't have gone long because I didn't have the time to go long. And you weren't feeling well because you said to the crowd 10 times you were sick, you didn't feel good. And you kept asking the audience what the baseball game was. Is Atlanta winning over it was Pittsburgh Pirates? And the crowd was like, I thought you were here to do a show for us. So he said, all right, whatever. I said, no. Let's have a truce. And he's like, yeah, just next time, do your time. Don't go long. I'm like, so I run into him another time. I see David Spade with him. So I said, David, how's it going? He said, yeah, you met Dennis? I said, I've met Dennis. I said, when you have lunch, don't go long. Don't go long. And he just looks at me and says, dude, you went long. I said, no, again. So finally he said, all right. I said, can we just call it a truce? Because I couldn't have gone long. David, you know me. How many jokes do I have? 2. He wanted me to do 50 jokes. I have 2 jokes. So finally he said, truce. Fine. I said, great. And you should like me anyhow. I'm a good guy. You're a good guy. I love you. You don't have to love me, but we should be able to get along. And then we went to an all-star game here in Vegas. And they put me in my seats, and sure below, just sitting right behind me.
Miller.
Right behind me. So I go to my seats, and I look right at him. I said, oh, man, look at that. You're not going to be able to, I had my hairs out to here. I said, you're not going to be able to see any of the game, by the way. And he says, yeah. I said, this is my son, Connor, or whatever his name's son was. I said, hey, Connor. And he says, now this is the worst thing I have to do in my entire life. And I said, what's that? I have to tell you that my son is your biggest fan.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, oh, it's okay. Just take it. Just do it real slow. He says, seriously, you not? He's freaking out because he sees Carrot Top. And I said, did you tell your son how much of a loving relationship we've had? And he just smirked and did thing. He said, will you take a picture with him? And I said, absolutely. But you and I have to be best friends forever now. He says, you got it. I took the picture and he says, you're a good sport, kid. So we're good.
Yeah. But what a story though, right?
Yeah.
Like why hold this grudge over these
That
years?
definitely wasn't true. I mean, if I had gone long, I was one of those guys, but I didn't have the capability.
Yeah. Has there been a lot of, obviously famous people coming to your shows? Because you always make a habit of going out into the crowd and saying hi to everybody. And
yeah, it's fun. We had Sting come. We have had Queen and Shania Twain. We've had a lot of people come. And the same thing, you try to treat it just like a normal show because you get all worked up if you think, Elton John's sitting out there in a pocket. So just do the show normal. I will say one was pretty fun with one with Gene Simmons, one with Queen. So Queen came to the show, and they were just Roger Taylor had been before. He knew what he was in for. He'd seen it and was just love. And he was telling Brian, this is really great. They come. And it was a great night. And I remember it was great. Couldn't have been better. They came backstage. And they were just, going on the skull. It's just amazing. And the thing. And they really were genuinely. So Brian was like, does he see how they does the thing? You know, how do you time the song with the, like, just blown away.
Yeah.
So he says, you know, exchange numbers or something, and he said, I get a call that night or text that night. He says, I don't want to be that guy, but is it cool if I bring my son tomorrow? And I'm thinking, you want to go 2 nights in a row?
Yeah.
I said, absolutely, Brian, whatever you need. I would love that. So he comes, brings his son, and they sit to the show, and it's another great show, thank God. He comes backstage, and he says, I brought my son. Hey, he says, I've been going on. His son was like, my dad, I'm talking about your show. I said, oh, cool, glad you guys had fun. And Brian says right to me, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but I had to make sure this wasn't a fluke. Because it blew him away so much.
Right.
He's like, this isn't it. So now he's like, no, you're the real deal. Like, so it was sweet. He had to come back just to
make sure
it wasn't bullshit.
Yeah.
Now, Gene, we all love our Gene stories.
Gene Simmons, yeah, of course.
This one's become famous. People have come up to me in the streets and said this to me. So I did a show on the Gene Simmons roast. I did his roast. I did.
Yeah.
I also did the show, the
Family Jewels.
Family Jewels show many times. And one of the ones he has where he has his warehouse, the big warehouse, in his house, and it's incredible, right? It's everything imaginable. KISS, anything, and he's you know, he loves to tell that too. He's like he says, and I have everything, anything that's name anything, any topic, or any item.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I know you have caskets and you have condoms, and I don't know, you have KISS gum. Of course, we have KISS chewing gum. Where's the? So they have their assistant go get it. And he's going around the whole thing. And I mean, for 20 minutes, he says, so, you know, this is no band in history. And I said, well, I don't want to, maybe think about it. I don't want you to take this the wrong way. And I know you're probably gonna. And they're filming us. Like the camera crews are all. And I said, I've never heard of your band, but this is amazing. And he just looks at me and he says, heard of what band? I said, KISS. I've never heard of your band, but I mean, this is unbelievable. You must have done something right to have, this is crazy. And he says, you've never heard of the band KISS. And I said, see, I'd tell you, you were going to take it wrong, and I apologize for it coming off that way. I'm a big fan of you. I knew you on the TV show, but I didn't know you had a band that was like this cowboy. Swear to God. I said, I've heard of the band Hanson.
Yeah.
Now he just kind of, you said yes, and the camera guys are just they're beside themselves. They can't even hold their cameras because I'm telling them I've never heard of his band, but I've heard of Hanson.
Right.
Finally he said, God, you got me, man, and make sure you don't put that in the show. Of course they did.
Yeah.
The other one was he was at backstage, and you know, Genie's such a sweet guy. Mm-hmm. So he says, you know, he's always so proud of the stuff that he does. Like, you know, I am indie, and the money symbol bag. You know, I own that. I'm telling you, horrible Gene Simmons
Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
I trademark everything.
I trademark everything, so I own. So what you need to do, and you need to have something that you can own and something you can make money on while you're not going to do this the rest of your life. I said, well, I don't know how to, like Michelle, I don't know how to do anything else. He said, no, I'm being honest with you. You need to find something that's you could have you be you and make money on. And I said, well, I did something years ago. I had made a jingle, but I don't get paid. I still get paid for it, but it's not a lot. It was just a jingle. They had a competition for this breath mint, and there was a nationwide. My buddy was a piano player, so we came up by Menon, and he was like, by Menon? I said, you know, remember by Menon? And he says, you did that? And I said, yeah. And he's like, no. I said, yes. And I Jeff, we still get checks, right? And not a lot. I said, but it was such a big campaign. I mean, for then when it was out, I made a lot of money, but then it was just, you know, what it was. And he's just like, that's truly remarkable. And he's so like, wants to talk more about it. He says, anything else? And I said, yeah, the certs with Retson. That was another one we came up with. He goes, You're pulling my leg. I said, I am. But the Menon thing, I said, no, the whole thing, the Menon thing. He was so mad, so mad. He had me go 20 minutes, he said he had by Menon. And, why would you stop? I said, because you were enjoying it. You enjoyed the, I said, then the Retson one, you just went, no, you're pulling my leg.
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah,
that's too much.
With the Retson.
Another thing that's, as we start to wind down here, another thing that's a kind of a Carrot Top trademark is your after show. You know, the dressing room party area. You've got a nice bar down there. We talk about this. Is now it's kind of expected? Is it hard for you? I know for me, after the show, sometimes you don't want to see people, but you always do.
Yeah, well, some nights I don't. You know? Okay. I mean, usually we want to. I mean, especially friends. I get excited, you know, to hang out with my friend, and especially if the friend. Now, some nights, if I have to go somewhere, I got to get out of there.
Yeah.
For the most part, we have a little wind down, and if not with people, it's my crew. We always have a wind down, and we go over everything just for a second, like what went right, what went wrong, because it's new stuff that was just added. But like last night, that was fun because my buddy Cosmo, from the lighting director,
everyone knows
AC/DC,
Cosmo,
came, and it was his wife, and he came back, and I did the joke just for him, you know, and then I brought it back and showed him. And he was just beside himself. He's like, I knew that you were going to do an AC/DC joke, but I didn't know you were going to make like this elaborate prop, you know. So it was fun to see his face light up. He said, "Yeah, we got to get him to sign it." That'd be cool, right?
Yeah, bring Angus to the show.
Him sign the leg.
Yeah. You mentioned your crew, and your show is really on it. Like you mentioned, there's a music cue. It's right there, and sometimes it's a 3-second playing of music. Is this something that you've rehearsed over the years? Because you have to have guys that can nail it right at that split second.
It's just a blessing because my crew is so good. I mean, I'm not just saying that, but we do enough shows, I think. Like, we do so many shows. It's evolved into that nice tightness. But from day one, even back then, before we even had as many sound cues, it always was a quick, tight show. But as the show evolves and we even add more and more sound, more video stuff, it just seems to come second. I say in the crew, that best crew, it comes second. We don't rehearse it. We get there during sound check, and I say, put up the picture of AC/DC and the guy, and then leave it going. I'll do, and NASCAR put up the toothless guy, and then take it down. I mean, it kind of just is a work in progress kind of thing. But it's I even will say, you know, you want to toot you on your own. I come back and I said, that show's too. It's too smooth. Like, it's just too boom, boom to boom. There's not a gap. There's not a thing. But it's because we do it so much, I think.
Right.
And they know me, and they know. And if I go out of it to do something else, they know to follow me. I don't know how they do that, but I might give a look over and say something like, you know, NASCAR or something. And then they just follow. But they're pretty good. I mean, there's never been. I don't think there's ever been a show where actually everything is, you know, I mess up. I mean, one time I think in the last year, John said I rushed or my finger got stuck on the, you know, the ding button.
Yeah.
But it didn't make or break the joke. You know what I mean? Yeah. It just it me up for a second because I go just do, and there wasn't a bell, so I was like But they're so good.
But you need
But there's so many sound cues. I mean, it's
tons.
like a Broadway show.
Yes.
It really is. It's
and like I said, and they're not like, some of them aren't very long, so you need to have the ding right for the ding. It's not like, we got 30 seconds to mess with.
And at the timing, right? It's a new joke with the elevator. The callback when you say it's a lot to take in.
I would walk 500 miles. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but here you are, 20 years once again at the Luxor alone, and you just extended your deal. Apparently, another 5 years,
something close to that.
I mean, that's amazing. So, so what is your schedule then? Do you do 3 weeks on, 1 week off, or do you?
It really varies. On average, it's 4 weeks on, 1 week off.
Okay.
But there's other times it's 3 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 1. But for the most part, on average, it's 4 weeks and then 1.
And when you're off, or is that when you?
Sometimes I go to LA and shoot stuff if I can, or we go on the road. So our road shows go on when I have a break. It's another reason why I don't do a lot of road shows. But we do. But yeah, I can go to L.A. and do something, or go. You know, I have to go to Austin, Texas, in a couple of weeks and do a couple of things because that's where they do it. So I'll fly to Austin and then fly home to Orlando.
Do you ever do corporate gigs and those types of things?
I used to do a lot of corporate gigs. Yeah,
it seems like Vegas would be the place for that.
Yeah, we get offers a lot of time for corporate gigs. We just don't. I mean, we pick and choose. We don't do them all, but we've done some over the years.
So with Luxor for another 5 years, kind of what is your? Do you have a plan, or just continue week by week, add new stuff? And
I have no plan.
Yeah,
no, I'm just riding on the seat of my. I mean, no, the plan is just keep on the track, you know, and keep writing jokes and keep getting the show smoother and having fun. You know, and you never know what's gonna come down the road. That's always what makes it fun. I mean, today I could get a call today and say, hey, they want you to be in a movie, you know. So you just don't know. So you just keep riding, just doing it, rocking it.
Last few things for you. You mentioned that you had, I think, 9,367 shows or whatever, something along those lines. Are there a few of them that stand out for you?
Yeah. I mean, I do a little throwback on the show. I said almost 10,000. Now, 4 of those were good, but still. But there all absolutely are some that, you know, that stand out. That we call them a road show usually, but. You know, we can have a lot of those, you know, because you get ones that you kind of don't want to remember. You're like, man, that was a crap show, you know, and hopefully you don't have many of those. But there's definitely more good than bad, which is it's always that's the best, you know. There's definitely more good than bad. I mean, we strive on always being a good show, but there's been ones you walk off and you're like, God damn, I think I'm getting out of the business. This is
what would constitute a bad show then?
Oh, it's just probably a combination of me and the crowd. If it just doesn't, there's not a blending moment. There's not a, you know, right, the first joke out, you know, if you're going to have a thing. But like I said, there hasn't been that many. We're lucky that with age and doing this so much longevity of doing it, you kind of figure it out. You can take a bet. You know, I always take a 2 and turn it into an 8, or 2 to a 10. You just don't want to take a 10 to a 2. You know, that's the worst. So,
but you know too, like people know kind of what they're getting into when they come to the show. So, like for me, like I come ready to laugh. Like I'm gonna laugh.
Right.
Whenever I go to a comedian, I'm there to laugh. So I mean, you think that most shows people would feel the same way.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, they've never had a show where people didn't come and didn't laugh. It's just I'm more, you know, picky of I want it to be perfect every time, and you know that's something that's probably not the best thing to have. You know, walk away, everything's good, you know, but I want. We had one last week. I'm like, now that was just, it was a 10. Everything was good. I mean, just not only the crowd thing. I was ad-libbing. It was just dancing on air up there. And then, you know, the very next night was just like pushing rope. So you're like, it's not the show, and it's not even necessarily you or the crowd. It's just a combination of things that come together. I mean, it's not one living comic that never said they had a bad show.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's or a rock guy, you know, a rock guy. It's not a rock band that's never said they never had a good show. I mean, right?
Yeah.
A shit show. These guys wouldn't stand. There was one, just, what's his name, just posted the day, and I knew the punchline was coming, but Twisted Sister, he does a whole long drawn out thing about, you know, this big crowd, and this one section was just sitting there and the whole time, and finally says, what's wrong with people? Stand up. And they said they were handicapped.
Yeah,
it's
like,
like,
the handicap section.
But it's like we've all been there, and you know, they might not be even handicapped. They just might not be. I had a guy in the front row last night just stared the whole show.
Yeah.
And I was just it was driving me nuts, but I had to look at everybody laughing, and not the guy that was just because he was driving me nuts. I can tell you a good Toby Keith story. This is funny in that sense of. I went to see Toby at the Staples Center in LA. And you know that is, it's 40,000 people, and it was sponsored by Ford. And on the stage he had Ford pickup trucks with fire cannons shooting out the lights and the tail lights, and these machines were throwing beers into the crowd from the truck. And he's up there, and it's sold out, and it's just unbelievable, right? I mean, it's rock and roll. He's singing that song, "How do you like me now that I'm on my way?" And right, and he keeps, and we're just like, this is so good. And every time he said, "How do you like me now?" he would flip the bird to the front row. So I'm thinking, oh, that's his agent, or that's his ex-girlfriend, you know, somebody, his agent, or his seamstress, or someone in the band. And we go on his bus, and he comes up, hey, Carrot. I said, God damn, dude, that was insane. He goes, Dad, you didn't see that, my heckler? And I said, your heckler? And he goes, yeah. I said, are you kidding with me? He says, no. Didn't you see? I said, oh, Dern, how do you like me now? He goes, yeah. I said, well, what was that? He says, this. I said, that's a heckler? I said, you have 40,000 people with Ford trucks screaming pyro and da-da-da-da. And why are you letting one person ruin your night? He goes, you don't let that do you? I said, no, if you go to my show, 2/3 of the crowd are doing that to me, not one guy. And he just looked, laughed. He goes, yeah, man, I don't know, Carrot. I couldn't ignore it. I had to tell him. He was mad. It ruined his whole night. I'm like, you just had us sold out in 50,000 square feet.
Stone Cold Steve Austin was like that too. He'd be in front of 10,000 people, and one guy would be yelling, "You suck, Austin." He'd be like, "That one guy. If it's one, then it's gonna lead to two. Then it's gonna lead to three. And then you got 500 people." Like, dude, it was one guy. One guy.
It's so good.
Last question for you. All the classic props that you've had, is there a few that stand out for you? You mentioned the caller waiting, but is there a couple
I've had an array of my old classics that I started with. I mean, there's hundreds. I mean, one was so old. I think I thought of it during the OJ thing. It was a pair of shoes. And I reversed the soles on the shoes, so when you walk, you trace the steps backwards. And it's clever, right? So people, I liked that one. We had the Crime Watch sign, which was my very first prop I ever did. You know, hey, how good is our Crime Watch? And I'm watching their signs. There's so many.
Dude, it's great talking to you, man. And congratulations
likewise.
on such a stellar career. And every show is fun, and I look forward to seeing it again soon.
Thanks for coming out. That was nice to bring your wife and your friends.
Yeah, we had a good time, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you, Bubba.